15-00592, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions in the term of 2022, July, the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. You want me to turn it over? Okay. Guilty verdict. Signed by the forelady, 3-2-23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00593, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, the July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116, verdict guilty, signed by the forelady, date 3-2-23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00595, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, SC Code -16-23-0490, CDR Code 0549, verdict guilty, signed by the foreperson of the jury, date 3-2-23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00594. The State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. SC Code 16-23-0490. CDR Code 0549. Verdict guilty. Signed by the foreperson of the jury, 3-2-23.
Thank you.
What if I told you that some families don't break after violence? They just rearrange. That a father can sit in a maximum security prison for taking 2 lives and still control the son who survived? What if the most revealing moments weren't in the courtroom drama or the crime scene photos, but in 42-second phone calls where nothing important is ever said, in jail conversations where laughter replaces grief, and the place where your mother and brother were shot becomes, once again, just somewhere to go hunting? This isn't a story about who pulled the trigger on June 7th, 2021. That question has been answered. Alex Murdaugh sits in a South Carolina prison, convicted of shooting his wife Maggie and 22-year-old son Paul at their 1,700-acre hunting estate. 2 life sentences. No parole. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. But this case doesn't end with a verdict, because in the wreckage left behind, there's a son still standing. Buster Murdaugh, 29 years old, the only surviving member of a family that once ruled 5 counties in South Carolina's Low Country. And his story, the story of what happens after, might be the most unsettling part of all. Before we go further, if you're drawn to cases that look beyond the crime itself and into the psychology of what comes after, hit that subscribe button for Dark Trail Files. We don't just cover true crime. We examine the spaces between the facts, the silences that speak louder than testimony, and the families that survive in ways that feel deeply wrong. New investigations drop every week. Now, let's go deeper. The Murdaugh name carried weight in South Carolina for nearly a century. Not the kind of weight that comes from money alone, though there was plenty of that. This was power. Alex's great-grandfather became the top prosecutor for 5 counties in 1920. His grandfather followed, then his father. 3 generations, 87 years. One family controlling who got charged and who walked free across a region larger than some states. Alex Murdaugh didn't become a prosecutor. He became a personal injury lawyer instead, building a firm that made millions. But the legacy remained. In Hampton County, everyone knew the name. Everyone knew what it meant. Buster grew up inside that legacy. Private schools, Wofford College, plans for law school at the University of South Carolina, just like his father and grandfather. He was being groomed to continue the dynasty. But by the spring of 2021, something had gone wrong. Buster had been removed from law school. Plagiarism, according to court documents. The carefully constructed path forward had cracked. And then, on June 7th, 2021, everything shattered completely. Paul and Maggie Murdaugh were found shot to death near the dog kennels at Moselle, the family's hunting property. Multiple gunshots. 2 different weapons. Alec called 911 at 10:06 that night, saying he'd just found them. For more than a year, the case went unsolved. Alec gave interviews. He cried. He posted a reward. He said he'd been visiting his mother, who had dementia when it happened. He said he had no idea who could have done this. And Buster stood beside him through all of it. Then came the cracks. Alec's decades-long theft from clients, over $9 million, began to surface. A botched attempt to stage his own murder so Buster could collect life insurance. Financial schemes that stretched back years. And then, in July 2022, the unthinkable. Alex Murdaugh was indicted for the murders of his wife and son. And it's in the immediate aftermath of that arrest, in those first phone calls from jail, that we begin to see something strange. Not what's said, but what isn't.
I need people to talk. But you know, I'm way past worrying about what people that don't matter say. You know, there's so many people that they don't have a friggin' clue.
Well, it's easier for you. You don't run into these people in public.
Which people?
Any people that has a negative outlook on this thing.
Well, do you know who they are?
I mean, nah, man, but I mean, I get stopped and yelled at all the time. I got cussed out in the gas station the other day.
You kidding?
Nah.
So what?
Being who I am, I guess.
Who was it?
And so I don't know who he is. Some redneck fella.
And what did he say?
He just started making a ruckus in the gas station, yelling at me, talking about WTOC's looking for me, and, you know, called me a piece of shit and just stuff like that. Just crazy stuff.
I'm sorry as I can be.
It's okay. I mean, I don't really talk to him. I just kind of escape the situation.
WTOC. I mean, what the does he know about WTOC?
Man, apparently he said he saw something on the news where they said that people are looking for me, or someone's. I don't know what he said. I mean, it's not like I sat there and asked any questions. I mean, I understand that you've done illegal, but that doesn't mean you can just, you know, turn a cold shoulder to the laws of the United States.
I've allegedly done illegal stuff. I'm kidding. Anyway, but it is what it is, you know? It is what it is.
The calls from jail should have been filled with shock, denial, desperation. Instead, they were strangely mundane. Alec talked about food, about the guards being nice to him, about playing chess. He discussed his golf clubs and asked Buster to handle financial transactions with a law firm that had just sued him for embezzlement. Buster, for his part, sounded tired but cooperative. There were logistical updates about getting guns back from investigators, about checks being written and delivered, about trying to get back into law school. There was almost no discussion of Maggie or Paul. Violence has a way of leaving a mark on language. Families touched by sudden, brutal loss tend to circle back to it constantly, in questions that can't be answered, in rage that has nowhere to go, in grief that rewrites every conversation. But in these calls between a man accused of double homicide and his only surviving son, The dead are barely mentioned. Life goes on as if it's just another Tuesday, as if two people haven't been erased. This is where the story starts to pull away from the familiar shape of true crime. Because the question isn't just what happened on June 7th. It's what didn't happen after. The emotional response that never arrived. The reckoning that never came. The moment when a son might have asked his father, even once, "Did you do this?" That question is never raised. Not in the calls. Not in the testimony. Not anywhere the public can hear. Alex Murdaugh has a particular way of speaking. Even from jail, he sets the agenda. He asks the questions. He issues instructions. He frames the narrative. And Buster follows. Listen to how control works when it's embedded in everyday language. When power doesn't announce itself, it just operates.
How you doing on finances?
Pretty slim, but it'll be getting better.
Well, listen here. Do you want me to tell Uncle John to give you, several $1,000s, and then I'll pay him back?
No, it's just I've just had expenses, like considering I had to change my medical insurance.
Well, we need to get John to pay for the storage facility and then let me pay him back.
Well, I don't understand how you would.
You need to be paying. But anyway, I mean, do you want me to get him to give you just, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000 so you just have, and you don't have to worry about expenses?
No, because I've got that money. Right now my bank account, I've got $10,000. A little bit more when I get.
Sure, like when you go play golf, you can, if you want to, get a shirt and have a drink and have drinks or whatever at the bar and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, I've got stuff they can settle all that.
All right. Well, you just got to keep me posted because, I can get him to give you money and then pay him back. Okay. Well, you got to keep me posted and let me know, okay?
All right.
Everything else going okay?
Yeah, everything's fine.
You want to take my clubs?
No, I just use mine. I don't know where yours are. I think yours are still in the Mercedes. It's a Sword.
In one call, Alec directs Buster to coordinate a financial transaction involving Mark Ball, a lawyer from Alec's old firm, and Palmetto State Bank, the same bank later implicated in some of Alec's schemes. Buster doesn't question it. He confirms the details. He says the check will be ready at 8:30 in the morning. Alec responds, "That makes me feel better." Then he asks how much has been paid so far. This is weeks after the firm has sued Alec for stealing from clients. Weeks after his world has publicly collapsed. And yet here he is, still orchestrating financial moves, still deploying his son as the executor of plans Buster may not fully understand. Notice what's absent. There's no discussion of why this matters. No transparency about what's at stake. Buster isn't treated as someone who deserves explanations. He's treated as someone who executes orders. And he does. It's not obedience in the traditional sense. Buster doesn't sound afraid. He sounds dutiful, embedded in a system where his role is already understood. He's infrastructure, not a son asking his father for clarity in a crisis. He's a support beam holding up a structure that's actively collapsing. This dynamic doesn't start in jail. You don't build this kind of transactional relationship overnight. This is the product of years, maybe decades, a family language where love and function have become so intertwined that they're indistinguishable. And when Buster finally speaks in court, under oath, that same language carries forward, controlled, measured, protective.
Buster, were you aware that your dad had a opioid addiction?
A little bit. I knew a little bit about the usage of pills.
What did you know about it?
I knew that either my brother and mom had found them at some point, and then told them like, "Hey, we found these." And I want to say the 2018 around Christmas, he went to a detox facility after Christmas, and that was my knowledge of it. Thought that handled it, and then there were a couple more times after the fact where they would kind of go into this finding pills, all that stuff, and then he did a few kind of like at home, just self-detoxed a couple times, and thought once he did that get off of them. But that was kind of my general knowledge about it all.
You thought he had beat it.
That's right. Yes, sir.
And when he was confronted about his pills, what was his attitude?
I don't know for sure, because I wasn't there when a lot of the confrontations happened with them finding the pills. But I mean, I've never heard anything. Just apologetic and
right.
Sorry, and would usually be his kind of regular kind of response.
During the trial, Buster testified for the defense. He told the jury that Alec had an opioid problem, but that he thought his father had handled it. He described his father as destroyed and heartbroken after the murders, saying Alec broke down crying when Buster arrived that night. He confirmed his father's voice in a video taken at the kennels minutes before the killings, but said it didn't match the shirt prosecutors claimed Alec was wearing. At every turn, Buster's testimony supported his father's version of events. It wasn't aggressive advocacy. It was something quieter, alignment. He didn't challenge the prosecution's timeline or evidence. He just gently disputed their interpretation, over and over, in ways that felt rehearsed but not dishonest. Buster was 26 years old, testifying in a case where his father was accused of killing his mother and brother, and his effect throughout was remarkably even. Calm, almost detached. The defense used him not to introduce explosive new evidence, but to humanize Alec, to show that someone still loved him, someone still believed in him. That someone was Buster, and whether it was strategy or genuine conviction, it worked exactly as intended. Then there are the moments that don't fit, the expressions that land wrong, the reactions that make people pause. One of the most jarring pieces of evidence from the case isn't testimony or forensics, it's tone.
I knew people would talk, but I'm way past worrying about what people that don't matter say. There's so many people that they don't have a freaking clue.
Well, it's easier for you. You don't run into these people in public.
Which people?
Any people that has a negative outlook on this thing.
Well, do you know who they are?
I mean, nah, man, but I get stopped and yelled at all the time. I got cussed out in the gas station the other day.
You kidding?
Nah.
So what?
Being who I am, I guess.
Who was it?
And so I don't know who he is. Some redneck fella.
And what did he say?
He just started making a ruckus in the gas station, yelling at me, talking about WTOC's looking for me, and called me a piece of shit and just stuff like that. Just crazy stuff.
I'm sorry as I can be.
Okay. I don't really talk. I don't really talk to him. I just kind of escape the situation.
WTOC. I mean, what the does he know about WTOC?
Man, apparently he said he saw something on the news where they said that people are looking for me, or someone's. I don't know what he said. I mean, it's not like I sat there and asked any questions. I mean, I understand that you've done illegal, but that doesn't mean you can just, turn a cold shoulder to the laws of the United States.
Allegedly done illegal stuff. I'm kidding. Anyway, but it is what it is, It is what it is.
In jail calls released to the public, Alec is heard laughing, joking, about the case itself, about the media coverage, about life in lockdown. The tone is light, conversational, almost casual. And Buster, on the other end, doesn't object. He engages. There's a psychological phenomenon where laughter becomes a defense mechanism. Not because something is funny, but because feeling nothing is easier than feeling everything. Laughter can be a way to dominate a moment emotionally, to set the terms. If you laugh, the other person has to meet you there or risk being the one who's taking things too seriously. Alec uses laughter like a tool. It's not joy, it's control. And in a situation where Buster has every reason to demand answers, to scream, to break down, he instead mirrors the tone his father sets. And then there's the moment in court that fractured Buster's public image entirely. A single expression that thousands saw and couldn't unsee.
15-00592, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, in the term of 2022, July, the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. Do you want me to turn it over? Okay. Guilty verdict. Signed by the forelady, 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00593, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, the July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116, verdict guilty, signed by the forelady, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00595, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. SC Code -16-23-0490, CDR Code 0549, verdict guilty, signed by the foreperson of the jury, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00594. The State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. SC Code 16-23-0490. CDR Code 0549. Verdict guilty. Signed by the foreperson of the jury, 3/2/23.
During the trial, prosecutors presented graphic testimony about the injuries Paul sustained. The wounds were catastrophic. A shotgun blast at close range. The pathologist described the damage in clinical detail. And in that moment, cameras caught Buster. He appeared to smirk. It lasted only seconds. Maybe it wasn't even intentional. Faces do strange things under stress. People react to horror in ways that don't make sense. Some smile when they're uncomfortable. Some detach completely. But the image was captured. And once it was out there, it defined him. The internet exploded. Was it denial? Dissociation? Arrogance? Legal experts tried to explain it. Trauma does strange things. Buster had been sitting in that courtroom for weeks, absorbing testimony about his mother and brother's deaths. Maybe his brain had simply shut down parts of itself to survive. But explanations don't erase what people saw, and what they saw felt wrong. It felt like someone who wasn't where they should be emotionally, like a person who had found a way to be present without actually feeling present. Which raises the question, how do you survive something like this without detaching? And if you detach enough to sit through graphic descriptions of your brother's injuries without breaking, what does that say about the shape your survival has taken? Places hold memory differently after violence. A home where someone died becomes something other than a home. For most people, the The site of a loved one's murder becomes untouchable, a place you avoid, or sell, or memorialize. But not always. A few months after Maggie and Paul were killed at Moselle, Alec made a request that stopped people cold.
Can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah.
What you doing?
Nothing. At Greenfield.
Y'all hunting?
We're going to this afternoon.
Let me tell you what you ought to do, Buster. I think the damn eaters were full over there at Moselle. If you felt like going back there, I bet with nothing going on, I bet there's deer all over them things.
I don't mean back. What's that going to do for me?
Kill a deer?
I'm not going hunting out there.
I don't blame you. I'm just letting you know. Do you care if I let Jim do it?
Jim who?
Jim Griffin.
Oh, I let him hunt deer out there? Or what are you talking about?
I didn't know if you wanted to hunt doves out there. If you do, then I want you to do it. If not, then I'm going to let him do it. Do you want a dove hunt out there?
No.
Not at all.
In a jail call from late 2021, Alex suggested that Buster go hunting at Moselle. Not near Moselle. At Moselle, the same property where, just months earlier, Buster's mother and brother had been shot to death near the dog kennels. Alec framed it casually. Hunting had always been a family tradition. The property had a huge population of hogs. It was practical. It made sense. And Buster didn't refuse. On the surface, this might seem like an attempt to reclaim space. But there's another reading. One that's harder to sit with. When you strip a place of its emotional meaning. When you make it functional again before grief has even had time to settle. But doing something more than reclaiming. You're erasing. You're deciding that the site of violence doesn't get to be sacred. That life continues exactly as it was, because to pause, to mourn, would mean acknowledging something unbearable. The kennels at Moselle weren't just any location. They were where Paul and Maggie spent their last moments. Where their bodies were found. Where Alec called 911. And a few months later, the conversation is, you should go hunting there. Most people would say no. Most people would feel the weight of what that space now holds. But Buster didn't say no. Or if he did, it's not on record. What does it mean when your father, accused of killing your mother and brother, tells you to go back to the place where they died, and you don't push back? What does that say about the kind of loyalty being asked for? And what does it cost to give it? After the murders, after Alec's arrest, after the trials and convictions, there was still the matter of what to do with everything the Murdaughs had left behind. In another call that reveals how the family processed loss, Alec had an idea for Christmas.
Nights are better.
Yeah, having a good day. I've been spending so much money and it hurts me.
On what?
People's Christmas presents.
Well,
I mean, I gotta buy a present for everybody.
well,
And it's a lot of people.
I'll tell you this, Bus.
What?
Hang on. We
Hello?
give people something that was Mom or Paul's. And I think people really like that.
Well, I mean, I wasn't gonna do that.
We'll see if I get out of here, which, like I say, I'm not optimistic, but we'll see. We'll see. They seem to be optimistic, but they were optimistic the first time too.
Right.
Anyway,
Well, I mean, I've already bought everybody something, so.
well, we'll talk about finances when I get out of here, but I'm gonna make sure you're okay.
Well, I mean, I make money,
I know.
and if I don't go back in the spring, then I'll continue to make more effectively.
I know. I'm talking about anyway. We'll get all that square. Talk to you when we're not on this phone being recorded.
In a jail conversation, Alex suggested that items from Moselle, things that had belonged to Maggie and Paul, should be given away as Christmas presents. Not kept, not preserved, redistributed. There's a version of this that could be generous, a way of keeping memory alive. But the way it was framed didn't feel like memorialization. It felt transactional, a way to clear space. Maggie and Paul's belongings weren't treated as extensions of them. They were treated as inventory, items to be moved, allocated, distributed. And once again, Buster was the one expected to handle it. This is what happens when people are replaced by tasks. When grief is converted into logistics. You don't have to feel the loss if you're busy managing it. And then, in March of 2023, just days after Alec was convicted, an estate auction was held. Items from Moselle were sold to the public. A couch went for $14,000. Longhorn mounts for $10,000. Maggie's bicycle. Alec's monogram tumblers. A dartboard with Buster's name still written on it. People came out of curiosity. Some wanted a piece of true crime history. Others wanted conversation pieces. One buyer said they were shopping for Christmas presents for family members who had followed the case. Buster received over $500,000 from a sale. But what do you do with money that comes from auctioning off your mother's things? The furniture you sat on, the items you grew up with, now scattered across Georgia and South Carolina in the homes of strangers? There's no right way to handle this. But the speed of it all, the efficiency with which everything was dismantled, distributed, sold, suggests a particular philosophy. Keep moving. Don't stop. Because if you stop, you might have to feel it. And feeling it might be unbearable. When Buster took the stand, the prosecution had an opportunity to ask the questions everyone wanted answered. But some questions never came.
Out that your mom and brother were murdered.
My dad called me. I can't remember the exact time, but it was later. And he called me on the phone. He asked me if I was sitting down, and I was like, yeah. And then he, sounded odd, and then he told me that my mom and brother had been shot.
What'd you do?
Well, Brooklyn, my girlfriend, was with me, and I think she heard she could hear my conversation kind of over the phone. And so she just started packing stuff, and I kind of just sat there for a minute, and I was in shock. But eventually we got our stuff together and drove down to Moselle.
Did you see your dad?
Yes, sir.
What kind of condition was he in? What was his demeanor?
Yeah, his demeanor was, he was destroyed. He was heartbroken. I walked in the door and saw him and gave him a hug and just broken down.
What'd you do to help him pack?
Got his bag and went into the closet, grabbed some t-shirts, grabbed some shorts, grabbed toilet kit, put it in the bag and left.
Why were you doing the packing?
Just trying to help him. He was so upset. We were all upset, but just trying to expedite the process of getting Alameda.
When did you first find out that your...
Buster testified that his father called him the night of June 7th. Alec asked if he was sitting down. Then he told him Maggie and Paul had been shot. Buster said his father sounded odd. He and his girlfriend immediately drove 200 miles from Rock Hill to Moselle. When he arrived, Alec was destroyed, heartbroken, crying, unable to speak clearly. Buster described that moment with precision. But there's something missing from his account. The question he must have asked, or should have asked, but that never appears in his testimony. Dad, what happened? Not just the facts, not just the timeline, but the deeper question underneath. How did this happen while you were there? Because Alec claimed he wasn't at the kennels when the murders occurred. He said he was at the house, that he found them later. But cell phone data and witness testimony would eventually place him at the scene. A video from Paul's phone recorded at 8:44 p.m., captured Alec's voice at the kennels. 5 minutes later, prosecutors say Maggie and Paul were dead. Buster testified that he was shocked to learn at trial that his father had lied about being at the kennels. But he also said he still didn't believe Alec was capable of murder. He called his father's behavior manipulative, characteristic of a psychopath in some ways, but insisted that it didn't encompass him as a whole. This is the tightrope Buster walks. Acknowledging the lies, acknowledging the financial crimes, acknowledging the manipulation, but stopping short of the final conclusion, drawing a line that holds his father on one side of it and the murders on the other. And in one of the most emotional moments of the trial, Alex spoke directly to Buster, not to answer questions, but to perform love.
Buster, I am so sorry that I let you down. I am so sorry that I have not been able to be with you. During such hard times. I am so sorry that I did so many things that are so contradictory to every single thing Mom and I ever taught you. And Paul, I am so sorry. I am so very sorry that the things that I did and that I am pleading guilty to here today have somehow caused some people, especially people on social media, and some people in the media, to somehow believe that based on the things that I did, that it is somehow okay to make false, baseless, unsubstantiated claims against you that are not only based on no facts and no evidence whatsoever, but are also not based on any semblance of reality whatsoever. And I am so sorry that you have had to go through that. I know, Buster, that you know that I have always been proud of you. I have never been more proud of you than I am for the way that you have handled all of the adversity that I put on you. Your whole family is proud of you. Mom is proud of you. And Papa is proud of you. I see in letters, emails, and messages that people give to my attorneys.
During testimony, Alec turned to Buster. He spoke about how much he loved him, how proud he was, how sorry he was for everything Buster had been through. It was one of the few moments where Alec's composure cracked in a way that felt genuine, or at least performed with enough skill to look genuine. Buster's reaction was muted. He nodded. He didn't break down. He didn't speak. The moment hung there, heavy and strange, because it was happening in a courtroom where Alec was on trial for killing Buster's mother and brother. And the message being sent was clear. I love you. I'm still your father. We're still us. That's the central tension in this story. Not whether Alec is guilty, that's been decided, but whether Buster can hold both realities at once. That his father is a murderer, and that his father loves him. That the man who killed his mother and brother is also the man who raised him, coached his little league teams, and called him buddy in 42-second phone calls from prison. Most people would say those things can't coexist. That if you truly understood what your father did, you couldn't maintain the relationship. But Buster suggests otherwise. That love, or something shaped like it, can survive even this. And maybe that's not strength. Maybe that's not loyalty. Maybe it's just the terrible architecture of a family that was never built to allow questions in the first place. Buster Murdaugh is 29 years old now. He's filed lawsuits against media outlets who linked him to the death of Stephen Smith, a classmate found dead on a rural road in 2015. He's reached settlements in civil cases tied to the boat crash that killed Mallory Beach in 2019, a crash where Paul was driving drunk. He's moved on, as much as anyone in his position can. But moving on and moving forward aren't the same thing. Even from prison, Alex's need for control hasn't diminished. He still needs to know. He still needs to manage the story.
TV Friday bus. I saw Jim Marvin on there for just a second.
Dad, it was something ABC 2020. I didn't watch it.
Well, was it a new interview or was it from that old interview?
I would assume if it had him on TV, it had to be the old one. He has not gone on TV since.
He hasn't. 10-4. All right. Well, I mean, was it the same old stuff with a bunch of innuendo and false stuff, or were they being semi-truthful?
Dad, I'd love to be able to give you some insight, but I didn't watch it and I didn't seek out any transcripts from it. I don't know. I know.
It ain't no big deal.
I would assume it's the same old thing. Brooklyn told me some stuff that was on it, and it was stuff that's wrong. So I mean, it's just that same old
Stephen Smith and Gloria and all that bullshit.
I think it probably had to touch on that. I think this one hit maybe a little bit more on the boat wreck.
I gotcha.
I just know that there was some stuff that Brooklyn said that was said in the little show, and it's just stuff that's not important, but it just shows that if they are willing to state that in fact, that they just don't know what they're saying, because it's just stuff that's not true.
I understand. So are they still trying to say out there like there's some mystery surrounding Gloria's death about how she died?
Saying what now?
About how she died? Are they still trying to make some innuendo there?
About Gloria?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are they still saying anything about Stephen Smith, even though Andy Savage?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody.
No connection to us?
Yeah, I don't think anybody took the heart of
Did
Andy
Slam ever come out and say there's no connection?
No, they
Even
were
though he
never.
told Andy Savage that?
No, Sled has not released anything. They didn't even release a statement about what was this most recent thing. There was something came out not long ago talking about how there's been like a breakthrough in evidence to do with like the homicides, and Sled wouldn't even come out and issue a statement saying that there has been no further evidence like gathered.
10-4.
So personally, I would not count on Sled to help in any way.
I was just curious. All right, my man. You get some rest, and now, what time you get on the road tomorrow?
About 8 a.m.
All right, I'll give you a call sometime when I can. Buster, what's going on with COVID out there? It must be going crazy.
It's this new variant. It's
Omni COVID or whatever.
Omicron.
Omicron. That's it.
In calls between Alec and Buster, Alec asks repeatedly about media coverage. What are people saying? What documentaries are being made? What's the narrative? He wants updates. He wants intelligence. He wants to know how the family is being depicted so he can respond, strategize, adapt. Buster provides the information. He tells his father about programs he's seen, about coverage that feels unfair, about projects in development. He plays the role of scout, reporting back from the outside world to the man locked inside. Even now, the dynamic holds. Alec asks. Buster answers. The chain of command remains. And when they talk about prison life, there's an eerie normalcy to it, like they're discussing a business trip rather than a life sentence for double homicide.
I don't know what's going on, but there's some big weekend where the Bloods and the Crips kill each other. So this is the first time I've been out of my thing in, I don't know, a while. It's been on lockdown all week. So So I don't know when I'm going to get the call again. I just didn't want you to worry about me.
Okay. How do you know that this is a big weekend that gangs kill each other?
Because I asked a guy, I was like, we've been on lockdown since, only times I've been out of my cell were to go see Jim the other day, and to go, I don't know, get some medical thing. And I was like, well, are we going to get out of our things today? And he's like, nah, this weekend is, and he called it something. And I'm like, what is that? And he said, that's a big, something with the blood. And, they fight, I don't know, kill each other. I don't know. I ain't seen no blood where I'm at, but I guess it's uniform across the board.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what they told me.
Alec describes the food, the other inmates, the guards, the lockdowns during COVID. He mentions playing chess, which he apparently does constantly. He talks about the routines, the monotony, the small indignities of incarceration. And Buster listens, responds, stays engaged. It sounds like a son checking in on his father. And maybe that's all it is. But it also sounds like someone maintaining a relationship that no longer makes sense to maintain. Staying tethered to a man who destroyed his family. Not because he has to, but because untethering would mean admitting something he's not ready to admit. That the man he loves is also the man who took everything from him. Before everything fell apart, the Murdaughs sounded like any other family. Joking about travel, talking about money, navigating the small frictions of daily life.
I just thought it was a real cheap airline, but it was nicer than I thought it was going to be.
Did y'all have room in your seats?
The seats were all right. It was, it's just a different, like the seats don't recline because they can sit more. If they don't recline, it's just, it's just different.
So you went 4 hours with no recliner?
Yeah. But, everything was still fun, and then going to Sedona was a good time.
Did you get to gamble any?
Yeah, so I did go gambling, and then the next day there was an article created about how I'm misusing funds.
By gambling?
Yeah, someone took a picture of me and John Marvin in the casino.
You're kidding me. What a fucking... Are you kidding me?
No.
How'd they recognize
No.
you?
Man, I guess, I'm a national figure, I think.
I guess you're going to have to wear a hat and shit when you go places.
In older recordings, you can hear a different version of this family. Lighter, more relaxed. Alec and Buster joking about flights and casinos, about practicalities and plans. It's mundane in a way that feels almost jarring now, knowing what comes next. These calls are a reminder that this family wasn't always defined by violence. They had inside jokes. They had routines. They had a version of normal that, from the outside, might have looked functional, even happy. But normal is a structure, and structures can hide a lot. Behind the jokes and the logistics and the everyday transactions, there was already a rot. Financial crimes stretching back decades. Addiction, manipulation, control. The foundation was cracked long before the murders. June 7th just made it visible. And when Buster testified about the weapons at Moselle, he did so with a familiarity that reminded everyone how deeply embedded he was in this world.
Shotguns.
You have 12-gauge shotgun?
12-gauge shotguns, 20-gauge shotguns, 16-gauge shotguns, 28-gauge shotguns.
Right. And how many type rifles did you have on the property?
A lot.
Can you just name some of them?
Yeah, 270 short mag, 7mm 08, 308, 243, 223, 300 blackout.
And what type of ammo did you keep on the property?
Well, all ammos for those calibers.
Sure. And where were the guns kept primarily?
In the gun room at the main house at Moselle.
And was there a pool table in the gun room?
There was.
Okay. Were there times when guns were left elsewhere on the property?
Yes.
Where else on the property would guns be left?
Well, just myself. I mean, I've left them up at the shed before. I've left them on golf cart used that day. Left them in a truck. I mean, guns would just not always find their way back to the gun range.
How about Paul? How was he with securing guns?
Not good.
What do you mean by that?
Paul left guns probably more on the property than anybody else, and sometimes sometimes he would use my gun and then he would leave it, and then I'd have to track it down.
Right. Did Paul carry guns in his truck?
He did.
Would he keep his truck locked up?
No, not all the time.
At some point in time, you and Paul received 300 blackouts for Christmas.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly, was that 2016 or 2017?
Sounds right.
Okay. And what color was your 300 blackout?
It was black.
And have you been sitting in this courtroom during the entire trial?
Yes, sir.
And the jury's seen a black 300 blackout. Is that yours?
It is. That is my 300 blackout.
Was that the one you got for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
And what color was Paul's?
Paul's was black and tan.
And when you say black and tan, what part was tan and what part was black?
So the receiver would have been tan, and and barrel would have been tan.
What part would have been black?
Stock, maybe?
Okay. And so yours was all black, his was black and tan.
That's right.
What happened to his that he got for Christmas in 2016?
His gun was apparently stolen, lost, taken. Yeah.
How do you know that?
That's just what Paul told me.
What happened to your gun after Paul's was stolen?
My gun became, what we would both use.
And did that create some confrontation between you two at times?
Yes, sir.
And why?
Well, kind of like I just touched on. So he would use it. He's not very good about putting it back where he found it. I leave it somewhere. I go back and, want to get it, and it's not there.
Did you notice, were you aware that Paul got a replacement at some point in time?
No, sir.
Well, you heard about that in the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But up to that point, did you ever see Paul use the replacement?
No, sir. I've never seen a replacement.
So every time in your presence, Paul was using a 300 blackout, which one would it be?
Mine.
There's, I'm not going to pull these guns out, Buster, but there's been discussion, and the jury has seen a 12-gauge Benelli with a Mojo sticker on it. Whose gun is that?
That's mine.
And what's Mojo?
Mojo is a brand of decoy. It's basically what it is it's, say you buy a wood duck Mojo and it sits on a pole, but the wings are motorized, so it's to replicate, a more alive duck.
And did you? Why's your Benelli have a Mojo sticker on?
Because I bought a Mojo decoy, and in the box it came with a sticker, and I put the sticker on the gun barrel.
And so that way that's your gun.
That's right.
I believe the evidence in the case is that Mojo Benelli, when it was seized, was loaded. Did you frequently put the gun away loaded?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Knowing that I might need it again at any point.
Okay.
Just, put it back on the shelf. I kept the safety on.
Okay. And I think it was loaded with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch turkey load. Do you remember that you would load that gun with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch?
Yes, sir.
And why would you do that?
I do that because when I go turkey hunting, the goal is to, get the turkey close to you and shoot it in the first try. But if I were to miss and the turkey goes running away and I try to shoot it again, I put a larger shell behind the smaller one for that.
The Murdaugh family owned a lot of guns. They were avid hunters. Deer, ducks, hogs, quail. Buster testified that Paul was the one who left guns lying around the property more than anyone else. He described the family's gun room, a dedicated space filled with firearms and ammunition. He knew the inventory. He knew the habits. He also testified that the family used the exact type of ammunition, 300 blackout cartridges, that killed Maggie. They had it in the house, on a bookcase, accessible. Prosecutors argued that the murder weapons came from the Murdaugh family's own collection, that Alec used their guns to kill them. The actual weapons were never found, but the implication was clear. This wasn't an outside attack. This was intimate. This was someone who knew where everything was kept. And Buster knew too. He'd grown up with those guns. He'd hunted with them. He'd lived in a house where violence and recreation were stored in the same room. When all was said and done, Buster's testimony lasted hours. And when it ended, the question wasn't what he'd said. It was what he'd protected.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh Jr., Murdaugh. I go by Buster.
Mr. Murdaugh, is your father sitting over here at the defense table?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury a little bit about yourself. Where you were born, where you were raised, where'd you go to school?
Right. So my name is Buster, 26 years old. I live in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I was born in Savannah and lived in Beaufort for about 2 years when I was a little child. We moved to Hampton in about 2000, and I grew up in Hampton, went to Wade Hampton High School, and after high school I went to a small college in Spartanburg called Wofford.
Is your mother Maggie?
Yes, sir.
And your brother Paul?
Yes, sir.
When you moved to Hampton, do you remember how old you were when you first moved to Hampton?
Three or four.
Okay. And did you live in Hampton in a house in the city limits?
Yes, sir.
The town limits?
Yes, sir.
And you did that with your mom and dad and brother for how long?
For around 20 years.
Right. What schools did you go to coming up through in Hampton County? What did you go to grade school?
Went to Ben Hazel Primary School, Hampton Elementary School, North District Middle School, Wade Hampton High School.
Okay. And as you were growing up, what were your interests, Buster?
Sports, playing sports, doing things outdoors, hunting, fishing.
And was your father involved in those interests with you?
Yes, sir.
And was your mother also?
Yes, sir.
And in what way?
Well, my father coached every little league team I played on up until I started playing for the schools in which had a coach.
And what about Paul? What were his interests growing up?
Paul's interests were outdoors, mostly. Hunting, fishing, playing around in the woods.
Right. Did he also play sports at times?
He did. Yeah, he played basketball and baseball.
Did your dad coach him as well?
He did.
And would your parents attend all of your and Paul's sporting events as you're growing up?
Every game. And it was a rarity for them to miss one, and then if they had to, they would call and explain. And
right. And at some point in time, did your parents buy this property off Moselle Road?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly when that was?
Right around 2012, I think. I would have been a sophomore in high school.
And when that property was first purchased, did you move out to Moselle, or are you still living in Hampton?
So we had a house in Hampton and also purchased the property at Moselle, which had a house. And for the beginning stages of owning Moselle, Hampton was still working as our primary residence. But I believe it was Hurricane Matthew, or one of the hurricanes came through and blew a bunch of pine trees over on the house. So it had to get work done to it. And from that point, we moved out from Hampton to Moselle while the house was getting fixed. And more or less, it just kind of, it never transitioned back to Hampton. It just almost like Moselle became the primary residence.
And during this time, did your family also have a house at Edisto?
Yes, sir.
How frequently would you stay at the house at Edisto?
Very frequently during the summertime.
Okay.
Almost every weekend.
And when your family essentially relocated to the Moselle property and making it primary residence, were you still living at home in high school, or do you remember how old you were at that point in time?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim. Will you say that again?
Were you living at home at that point in time? Was that while you were still in high school or
Yes.
school? You remember when you transitioned to Moselle and started staying there basically full time during the school year?
So when I was still in high school, we were living in the Hampton house, and then I'd gone off to college.
Okay.
Which is when the stuff happened, and they moved out to Moselle. So yeah, I was living at college.
And when did you go off to college?
2014.
Okay, so sometime after around 2014, family relocated to Moselle for the most part
That's
because of the hurricane damage.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell the jury a little bit about the Moselle property. I know they've heard a fair amount, but I think you probably know it better than anybody.
Yeah, so the Moselle property it's roughly 1,700 acres, and a lot of that is really not even accessible. It's a lot of swamplands, a lot of stuff that you just, no road systems or anything like that, but a big portion of it is has road systems and everything, and it's a big property. It's broken up into several different parcels that border each other, and we have 20 some odd deer stands, dove fields, duck ponds, just all over the property. So
What type of hunting did you and your brother and your father do at Moselle?
everything: deer, duck, quail, dove, hogs.
You have a duck pond?
We have a duck pond.
Okay. And the hunting was, did you have a lot of friends come out and hunt as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the jury has seen a aerial view of the property, and there's a main house, shed, kennels, and then there's a house sort of right on Moselle Road. What do you call that house?
That's the cabin.
The cabin. And did you live in the cabin with friends over summers at some point in time?
I did. The summer of my sophomore year, after my sophomore year, me and two of my buddies lived in the cabin.
Okay. And who are those buddies?
Nolan Tootin and Rogan Gibson.
Okay. And the so we can get more of this. We've heard about hogs and pigs on the property. Can you tell the jury a little bit about that?
About the hogs?
Yes, sir.
We had a lot of hogs, and if you don't know, hogs are very destructive to a piece of property. We plant food plots for the deer, plant the fields for the doves and the ducks, and they basically go through and ruin it all. So given the high population of hogs, we would frequently go out and hunt them, try to cut the numbers down a little bit.
Did what kind of guns did you have there at Moselle?
We had a lot of guns.
Do you have shotguns?
We did. Shotguns.
Do you have 12-gauge shotguns?
12-gauge shotguns, 20-gauge shotguns, 16-gauge shotguns, 28-gauge shotguns.
Right. And how many type rifles did you have on the property?
A lot.
Can you just name some of them?
Yeah, 270 short mag, 7mm 08, 308, 243, 223, 300 blackout.
And what type of ammo did you keep on the property?
Well, all ammos for those calibers.
Sure. And where were the guns kept primarily?
In the gun room at the main house at Moselle.
And was there a pool table in the gun room?
There was.
Okay. Were there times when guns were left elsewhere on the property?
Yes.
Where else on the property would guns be left?
Well, just myself. I mean, I've left them up at the shed before. I've left them on golf cart used that day. Left them in a truck. I mean, guns would just not always find their way back to the gun room.
How about Paul? How was he with securing guns?
Not good.
What do you mean by that?
Paul left guns probably more on the property than anybody else, and sometimes sometimes he would use my gun and then he would leave it, and then I'd have to track it down.
Right. Did Paul carry guns in his truck?
He did.
Would he keep his truck locked up?
No, not all the time.
Did at some point in time you and Paul receive 300 blackouts for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly, was that 2016 or 2017?
Sounds right.
Okay. And what color was your 300 blackout?
It was black.
And have you been sitting in this courtroom during the entire trial?
Yes, sir.
And the jury's seen a black 300 blackout. Is that yours?
It is. That is my 300 blackout.
Was that the one you got for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
And what color was Paul's?
Paul's was black and tan.
And when you say black and tan, what part was tan and what part was black?
So the receiver would have been tan, and and barrel would have been tan.
What part would have been black?
Stock, maybe.
Okay. And so yours was all black, his was black and tan.
That's right.
What happened to his that he got for Christmas in 2016?
His gun was apparently stolen, lost, taken. Yeah.
How do you know that?
That's just what Paul told me.
What happened to your gun after Paul's was stolen?
My gun became, what we would both use.
And did that create some confrontation between you two at times?
Yes, sir.
And why?
Well, kind of like I just touched on. So he would use it. He's not very good about putting it back where he found it. I leave it somewhere. I go back and, want to get it, and it's not there.
Did you notice, were you aware that Paul got a replacement at some point in time?
No, sir.
Well, you heard about that in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Trial? Okay. But up to that point, did you ever see Paul use the replacement?
No, sir. I've never seen a replacement.
So every time in your presence Paul was using a 300 blackout, which one would it be?
Mine.
There's, I'm not going to pull these guns out, Buster, but there's been discussion, and the jury has seen a 12-gauge Benelli with a Mojo sticker on it. Whose gun is that?
That's mine.
And what's Mojo?
Mojo is a brand of decoy. It's basically what it is it's, say you buy a wood duck Mojo and it sits on a pole, but the wings are motorized, so it's to replicate, a more alive duck.
And why does your Benelli have a Mojo sticker on it?
Because I bought a Mojo decoy, and in the box it came with a sticker, and I put the sticker on the gun barrel.
And so that way that's your gun.
That's right.
Okay. I believe the evidence in the case is that Mojo Benelli, when it was seized, was loaded. Did you frequently put the gun away loaded?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Knowing that I might need it again at any point.
Okay.
Just, put it back on the shelf. I kept the safety on.
Okay. And I think it was loaded with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch turkey load. Do you remember that you would load?
Buster never wavered, never turned, never gave the prosecution what they wanted. He supported his father's defense without appearing coached, without sounding dishonest, without breaking under cross-examination. He was effective, controlled, And when it was over, Alex smiled at him. A small, brief smile that cameras caught. Pride, maybe. Gratitude. Or just acknowledgement that Buster had done exactly what was needed. And Buster smiled back. On March 2nd, 2023, a jury found Alex Murdaugh guilty on all counts. 2 counts of murder. 2 counts of possession of a weapon during a violent crime. Sentencing came the next day. 2 consecutive life sentences without parole. Buster was in the courtroom. When the verdict was read, he put his head in his hands. Witnesses said he held it together until the cameras were off, and then he collapsed, crying uncontrollably. His uncles helped him to a car. It was the first time anyone had seen him break. After the conviction, Alec appealed. He claimed jury tampering by the court clerk, Becky Hill. The appeal was denied in January 2024, but Alec's legal team has continued fighting. As of late 2025, the South Carolina Supreme Court is reviewing the case. Alec remains in prison. Buster continues his life outside. But what kind of life is it? Buster has said publicly that he doesn't believe his father is guilty, that he thinks the real killer is still out there, that he fears for his own safety. He's also admitted that his father exhibits traits of a psychopath, manipulation, lying, emotional control, but insists those traits don't encompass who Alec is as a whole. This is the place Buster lives now, in the space between knowing and not knowing, between loyalty and self-preservation, between the father he loves and the man that father became, or maybe always was. He hasn't walked away. He hasn't denounced him. He hasn't asked the questions that would force a final reckoning. And maybe he never will, because some families don't break after violence. They just rearrange. They find new ways to function, new language to avoid the unbearable, new routines that let them keep moving without ever stopping to feel what's been lost. Buster Murdaugh is a survivor, but survival isn't the same as freedom. And loyalty, when it costs you the ability to see clearly, isn't love. It's something else, something quieter, something that looks like devotion but functions like captivity. The question isn't whether Buster will ever break free. The question is whether he even knows he's trapped. This case will continue to develop. Alec's appeals are ongoing. The Moselle property has been sold. The belongings auctioned. But the story isn't over. Because the Real story was never just about what happened on June 7th, 2021. It was about what happens after. About how a family survives itself. About how power works even from behind bars. About how silence becomes structure. About how love, when it's conditional enough, starts to look like obedience. Buster Murdaugh will carry this for the rest of his life. Not just a loss, not just a trauma, but the choice he made, or that was made for him long before he was old enough to know he had a choice. To stay. This is a Dark Trail Files investigation. Subscribe for more stories that go beyond the crime and into the psychology of survival, loyalty, and the spaces where love becomes something else entirely. This is Dark Trail Files, signing off.